You can only save one of these two women.
Oliver, save me!
His choice pierced my heart.
I choose her.
The moment I fell into the deep sea, I was reborn. This game is just beginning. I decided to fight back.
Baby, are these fireworks beautiful?
My revenge is about to begin.
At the pub watching male dancers perform, I suddenly had red wine thrown all over me. A young girl angrily accused me of interfering in her relationship with her boyfriend. I calmly pulled out a marriage certificate from my bag. Thank you for taking care of my husband. I'm sorry, he can be quite the flirt. I'll teach him a lesson when we get home. Why don't you give me your number? Next time my husband has needs, I'll give you a call. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. I stared blankly at the cold, sticky liquid on my body. Who would dare to pour wine on me in this place? The male dancer next to me frantically grabbed some napkins to wipe me down. I raised my hand to stop him and slowly looked up at the culprit. A young girl stood before me, seething with anger. She wore a loose white dress and canvas shoes, completely out of place in this atmosphere. If you ignored the fury in her eyes, she could almost pass for sweet and innocent. I'm warning you, stay away from Molly, she said through gritted teeth. I leaned back on the sofa. So this was about Oliver Thornton. I brushed my fingertip across my eyebrow and spoke coolly. Oliver Thornton? Who are you to him? The girl straightened her back, a hint of mockery in her eyes. I'm his girlfriend. We're getting married soon, so please stop trying to ruin our relationship, you homewrecker. Didn't your mother teach you? Being the other woman never ends well. If you keep seducing my fiancé, I'll expose you online. Her barrage of words lacked any real impact. I couldn't help but laugh as I stood up and walked towards her. Since when did Oliver start fancying such foolish schoolgirls? Perhaps my gaze was too playful, as she took a wary step back. What are you doing? I smirked and placed my hands on her trembling shoulders. Don't be afraid. I just want to know how you found out about me. She clenched her jaw, her eyes full of contempt. If you don't want people to know, then don't do it. I've seen plenty of gold diggers like you. You throw yourself at any rich man you see, not caring if they're taken or not. You people have no sense of morality or shame. Don't you know that destroying someone's family will bring divine retribution? She spoke with such righteousness, as if I truly were some despicable mistress. But I couldn't hold back my laughter any longer. She looked at me in confusion. After I finished laughing, I sat back down on the sofa, holding my sides. Is that so? Being the other woman sounds dreadful. But I suggest you get your facts straight before coming to accuse someone. As far as I know, Oliver Thornton doesn't have any fiancé. She anxiously tried to explain, I am. But he does have a wife of 5 years. I calmly interrupted her, taking out a marriage certificate from my bag and placing it on the table. What nonsense are you spouting? She took an angry step towards me but fell silent upon seeing the certificate. Can you see it clearly? I smirked and said teasingly. Though if you can't, it's all right. Oliver has a copy too. You can take a good look at it while lying in his arms later. I sighed deeply and repeated her earlier words. You know, I've seen plenty of gold diggers like you. You throw yourself at any rich man you see, not caring if they're married or not. You people have no sense of morality or shame. Don't you know that destroying someone's family will bring divine retribution? The color drained from her face as she swayed unsteadily. I then took out a wad of cash from my bag and tossed it onto the table. Thank you for taking care of my husband all this time. I'm not sure what the going rate is for someone like you. Why don't you leave your number? I'll call you next time my husband has needs. Her eyes reddened with anger, tears welling up. I'm not. Don't insult me like that. I ran my fingers along the abs of the male dancer next to me, my eyes full of sincerity. I'm sorry, my husband can be quite the player. But don't worry, I'll teach him a lesson when he gets home. It was 2 a.m. when I heard the front door open. I was curled up on the sofa, engrossed in a billionaire romance novel. The alpha male and the female lead were about to engage in some forced seduction. The static from her acrylic jumper illuminated the billionaire's chiseled features. Just as he was about to rip off her leggings, thermal underwear, and knickers, Oliver's deep, husky voice interrupted. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" I clicked my tongue in annoyance. Talk about bad timing. "Oh, do you have a problem with that?" I replied lazily. He paused, then slowly walked over to me. "I'm sorry. I didn't know she would go to you," he said. I rolled over, turning my back to him. "Keep your little lover in check. Next time, I won't let her off so easily. Oh, and she ruined one of my dresses. You can pay for it. £2 million. Silence stretched behind me. I sat up abruptly, meeting his gaze. Oliver looked away first. "If that's not acceptable, I can always raise the price," I said pointedly. "Fine. I'll have my assistant transfer it to your account tomorrow." He turned to leave, then seemed to remember something and came back. "Anything else?" I looked up at him. The light behind him reminded me of years ago, when he would wait for me after class under the street lamps. He spoke softly, "Dana, don't hurt her. You love her that much?" I couldn't help but mock. "Is that a warning?" His brow furrowed, eyes dark. "Dana, she's different from you. She's innocent and pure. I don't want her harmed in any way." I thought my heart had gone numb, but hearing the word pure made it ache uncontrollably. Fighting to control my emotions, I lowered my gaze and replied, "All right." On the weekend, Oliver Thornton and I went back to his parents' house together. During dinner, his mom held my hand with a beaming smile. "Dana, you two have been married for 5 years now. Isn't it time to think about having a little one?" I lowered my eyes, unsure how to refuse. This was the first time they had brought up this topic with me. The elderly couple were getting on in years, and it wasn't unreasonable for them to want grandchildren. As I struggled to find the right words, Oliver spoke up first. "Mom, I've already been planning for this. Don't worry about it." I looked at Oliver, and he gave me a slight nod. Not wanting to disappoint his parents, I went along with it and added a few vague words of agreement. Halfway through the meal, Oliver's phone kept vibrating. He was replying to messages, a slight smile playing on his lips. He looked just like a university lad in the throes of young love. His mom seemed to notice something was off. She coughed lightly and complained, "You finally come to visit on a weekend, and you're still glued to that wretched phone. Can't you spend some proper time with us?" Oliver appeared not to have heard. His fingers flew over the screen as he remained absorbed in his own world. The atmosphere at the dinner table grew awkward and strange. I smiled and used my fork to place a piece of spare rib in his mom's bowl. "Oh, he's always like this. Once he gets busy, he can't hear anything else. I'm used to it by now. Please don't mind him, Mom. The company's been really hectic lately." His mom gave a forced smile and patted my hand lightly. I thought the awkward moment had passed, but suddenly Oliver stood up. He looked at me apologetically. "Dana, there's an urgent matter at the office I need to deal with. I have to go now. You stay and finish dinner with Mom and Dad." Before I could say anything, he had already turned to grab his coat and was heading for the door. His dad's face darkened, and he slammed his chopsticks on the table. "How urgent can it be? You can't spare another half hour?" Oliver paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "Dad, I'll come visit another day. Besides, Dana's still here. I really must go now." With that, he turned and left. His dad's hands shook with anger. His mom watched my face carefully. I forced a smile. "Dad, Mom, don't be upset. All my favorite dishes are here today. I promise I won't leave until I'm absolutely stuffed." Oliver Thornton didn't come home last night. This was the first time he had stayed out all night. It seemed he really liked that young girl. Before, no matter how late he stayed out, he would always come home at night. Because he was worried I would have nightmares and be scared. When I got up at noon, I suddenly had a nosebleed. I was so frightened that I rushed to the hospital. I was afraid I would end up like the female lead in those cliché romance novels, where the male lead only regrets his actions when she's about to die. I don't want to die, nor do I care about Oliver's regrets. I want to live a long life myself, with more money than I could spend in 8 lifetimes. In the private waiting room at the hospital, I was watching mindless short videos while waiting for my test results. Eva Walsh suddenly appeared out of nowhere. "What a coincidence," she said with a smile. She took off her coat without hesitation, revealing the hickeys on her neck, bright and glaring. I had no interest in talking to her. But she sat down directly across from me and held out the paper in her hand. "I'm pregnant," she said, chin raised arrogantly. "What? Is it mine?" I asked in mock panic. She looked at me like I was an idiot. "Are you mad?" "Of course it's Oliver's baby." "Oh," I said, relieved. "Well, you should tell him then." I had thought Oliver's talk yesterday about wanting a child was just to appease his parents. I didn't expect someone had actually gotten pregnant by him. Eva snorted coldly. "Oliver didn't come home last night, did he?" "He was with me. I just told him I wanted to eat some prawns he peeled himself, and he left you to come find me. Do you know? We made love over and over from dusk till dawn. He said he loves me, that before he met me he never knew sex could be so pleasurable." I rubbed my nose awkwardly. How was this any different from blasting porn out loud? I couldn't help but advise her, "Keep your voice down." "Is this something to be proud of? Didn't you used to hate mistresses the most? How come you're so proud of being the other woman now? You actually believe what he says in bed? You're not the first girl he's said those things to, and you certainly won't be the last." She continued unfazed, "Dana Booth, we're both highly educated. Please respect Oliver's feelings. He doesn't love you anymore. You're old and washed up, you're not good enough for him anymore. Oliver and I are true love." I laughed. What kind of education teaches people to be so shameless? Little girl, feelings worth respecting are human feelings, not animal instincts. The man is keeping you as a pet, and you really think you're a person? If he loved you, why wouldn't he divorce me and marry you? Don't be so naive. She seemed angered by my words and raised her voice dramatically. "Dana, don't think I don't know. You're just using Oliver's guilt to hold on to him. There's no love between you two at all. Oliver has to force himself to touch you every time, he thinks you're disgusting. Did Oliver tell you all this?" My heart instantly sank to the bottom. My body couldn't help but tremble. Memories I had almost forgotten surfaced before my eyes. All the blood in my body was boiling. She looked at my reaction with satisfaction. "Yes, Oliver even showed me that video. We play it in the background every time we're in bed. He says whenever he sees you in your nightgown he feels nauseous. He only pretends to." Before she could finish, my hand flew out and slapped her across the face. She clutched her cheek and stood up screaming. "Aw, you dare hit me? I'll tell Oliver." It felt like millions of ants were crawling in my head. Eva's mouth was moving but I couldn't hear what she was saying. "Die, just die," I finally snapped and wrapped my hands around her throat. She didn't react in time, her face turning red as she struggled to breathe. Her hands flailed about wildly. I watched as her breath grew weaker and weaker, and only then did the fire inside me seem to die down. 10 years ago, Oliver Thornton and I had just graduated from university. Full of ambition as we founded our own company together. Our ideals were grand, but reality was cruel. Just as we were starting to see some success, we fell victim to sabotage by our competitors. Oliver was forced into prison. With nowhere else to turn, I desperately knocked on our rival's door. I was willing to do anything to save Oliver. 3 days later, I was sent to the hospital, covered in injuries. Soon after, Oliver was also released. But at the same time, he received a video from our opponents. In the footage, I was kneeling naked on the ground, enduring the mockery and abuse of 3 men. He was so enraged that he smashed everything in the room, then held me as he cried uncontrollably. He swore he would kill them. He also said he would marry me and treat me well for the rest of our lives. Later, he indeed fulfilled all his promises. Today, the Thornton Group is no longer the small 5-person company it once was. Oliver bided his time patiently, often drinking himself into a stupor to build business connections. He trampled his pride underfoot, step by step becoming someone that no one in the capital dares to cross now. 6 years ago, on the day our company went public, he proposed to me with great excitement. I refused. I didn't want him to marry me out of guilt. In my midnight dreams, the humiliation of that night always replays before my eyes like a film. It torments me day after day. I felt dirty, like I didn't even deserve to be loved by anyone. But Oliver never gave up. He accompanied me to therapy sessions and prepared surprises for me every day. He even jumped into an icy river in the dead of winter to retrieve a bracelet I had lost, all because of an offhand comment I made. Every 10 days, he would propose to me again, earnestly telling me he loved me. Finally, on his 33rd proposal, I said yes. He was so overjoyed he wanted to announce it to the world, but I stopped him. I was too afraid. I always worried that others' blessings would shatter my happiness. Cautiously yet greedily, I immersed myself in this love. Gradually, I emerged from my shell and learned to reconcile with myself and my past. My nights were no longer nightmares of falling into an abyss, but warm and deep embraces. Yet after just 5 years, the man who once called me the most wonderful girl in the world now hints at my former filth and unworthiness. The man who had silenced everyone who knew about the incident now uses my video as a tool for flirting, casually joking about it to his lover. I don't know how I let go of Eva Walsh. I vaguely remember there were many people and a lot of talking. When I came to my senses, I was already in bed. The doctor was holding my test results, his eyes full of meaning. "Doctor, am I dying?" I asked faintly. The doctor was startled by my question. "Oh, you're awake," he said. "No, don't worry. It's just dry weather, and your temper got the better of you. That's why you had a nosebleed." "I'll give you. Is Eva Walsh dead then?" I interrupted. He paused, then lowered his head. "No, Mr. Thornton came by earlier." "Oh." I turned over in bed. It had been a long time since I'd cried, but now my eyes were stinging with unshed tears. When did I first realize Oliver was cheating on me? Probably when I playfully pressed my lipstick-stained hand against his neck as a joke. His reaction caught me completely off guard. My secretary almost fainted from low blood sugar. "I helped her up, it must have smudged then," he said casually, but my heart felt like a ship hitting an iceberg, shaken to the core. That night, I sat up until dawn. I had someone investigate, and when I threw the photos in Oliver's face, he slapped himself repeatedly and knelt on the ground begging me not to leave. "Dana, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me just this once. I swear if it ever happens again, I'll be damned to hell." Young love always cuts deep. Looking at him crying and pleading, I thought perhaps I had put too much pressure on him. That he was just tired and had made a momentary mistake. I successfully gaslighted myself. Our life together went back to normal. Neither of us ever mentioned it again. But once a man cheats, how can it be just once? The second time I caught him, he still acted extremely remorseful. But this time, there was a hint of impatience in his apology. "Dana, it's just business. Everyone does it. Why can't you be like other wives and turn a blind eye?" He even allowed that girl to taunt me to my face. I didn't say a word. I just had someone cut out the girl's tongue. Oliver and I had built our vast empire from nothing. It was impossible not to have some unsavory connections. But now that he was successful, a respected businessman, it wasn't convenient for him to manage those aspects directly. So naturally, I became his shadowy backup. He probably never imagined I would go off script. After that incident, I realized that young love was utter nonsense. It couldn't withstand the test of time, nor resist the temptation of a uniform. I began to quietly and systematically seize control of his assets and business operations. I also became the generous and carefree Mrs. Thornton he had always wanted. I stopped questioning his activities, stopped investigating his whereabouts. And I stopped loving him. This way, he kept a string of young girlfriends, but never for more than 6 months at a time. Until he met Eva Walsh. Now they've been together for almost 2 years. My indifference to his affairs doesn't mean I can tolerate him mocking my past with someone else. Oliver Thornton deserves to die. Oliver dragged Eva back to the villa, his face ashen with anger. Ollie, you're hurting me. Eva whimpered, biting her lower lip with a pained expression. Oliver raised his hand and slapped her. What did you say to her? Eva fell to the ground, her eyes wide with disbelief. You hit me? Why did you hit me too? Oliver stepped forward and grabbed her collar tightly, his arm muscles bulging from the force. I asked what you said to her. She doesn't lose control easily. She was getting better. Eva averted her gaze guiltily. She insulted me first. She called me shameless, a homewrecker. She said our love was just animal instinct. That you kept me as a pet, playing with me when you felt like it and tossing me aside when you didn't. Isn't that true? What? Ollie, what's wrong with you? You said you loved me. Oliver lost his patience and flung her aside roughly. Did I? You believe what men say in bed? Dana will always be the one I love most. Who are you? I only noticed you because you look like Dana from university before those bastards ruined her. Eva sat there stunned. I don't believe it. She's so dirty, you. She started coughing as Oliver suddenly gripped her throat, his eyes blazing red. You wretch. How dare you talk about her like that? You're not worthy to even compare to her little finger. Eva shrank back, terrified by the look in his eyes. She knew if she said one more bad word about Dana, Oliver would truly strangle her to death. I'm sorry, Ollie. Please don't be angry, she pleaded. Can't you forgive me this once, for the sake of our baby? At the mention of a child, Oliver snapped out of his rage. Dana loved children. Whenever friends brought their babies to visit, she would dote on them endlessly. After they left, she would sit alone in the study, lost in thought. Oliver knew that even though Dana never said it, she was heartbroken. Those 3 bastards had tortured her so badly. The doctors said she could never have children. It was Dana's deepest pain, a wound Oliver dared not mention. Oliver slowly released his grip, a flash of sorrow in his eyes. Don't provoke Dana again. Stay here and have the baby quietly. Otherwise, I have ways to make you wish you were dead. Yes, yes, of course, Eva nodded frantically, struggling to her feet. After dealing with Eva Walsh, Oliver rushed home in a frenzy. The moment he opened the door and saw Dana, he let out a sigh of relief. He knew Dana wouldn't leave him. They had been together for 13 years and knew each other's flaws and struggles better than anyone. She was the one who would give up her life for him. Besides, who else could accept her past except him? But Oliver didn't know that Dana's heart was already riddled with wounds. Dana didn't need anyone's acceptance either. She could live a vibrant and passionate life on her own. I sat on the sofa, coldly watching Oliver Thornton as he crouched in front of me. He carefully took hold of my hand. Dana, your birthday is in a week. What gift would you like? Did it feel good? Watching videos of me with someone else? He froze, his eyes instantly turning red. I didn't mean to, Dana. That night I was drunk and talking nonsense with Eva. You can hit me. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Dana. He pulled my hand towards his face to slap himself. Let's get a divorce, I said calmly, forcefully pulling my hand away. What did you say? Oliver Thornton suddenly stood up. I looked up into his eyes and said each word clearly. Oliver Thornton, I want a divorce from you. Why? His eyes were panicked, his fingers tightly curled together. I laughed. He actually had the nerve to ask why? Dana, you've forgiven me so many times before. Why can't you forgive me this time? I really know I was wrong this time. Can we not get divorced? Don't you love children the most? Eva is pregnant. When the baby is born, I'll bring it home for you to raise. We'll tell everyone it's our child. I slowly stood up and slapped him hard across the face. Oliver Thornton, do you think I'm some kind of cheap person? The first time you cheated, I forgave you. I was stupid to believe your lies. But everything after that wasn't forgiveness, my heart was already dead. I stopped loving you long ago. The reason I'm choosing to divorce you now is because I've already transferred most of your assets. You're about to become a pauper. I said the last two sentences silently to myself. No, you love me, Dana. Don't you remember? You gave up returning to your original world for me. To save me, you nearly killed yourself. Dana, you considered me more important than your own life. He clutched my sleeve tightly. I smiled self-mockingly. So is it because I loved you so much that you felt free to hurt me without restraint? If Oliver Thornton hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten. It had been a long time since I'd heard the system's voice. I don't belong to this world. At the moment I successfully completed the mission, the system asked me, "Do you want to go home?" I shook my head and refused. At that time, Oliver and I had just graduated from university. I wasn't comfortable leaving him to start his business alone. And I didn't want to abandon him when our love was at its strongest. After hearing my answer, the system never appeared again. Before it disappeared, it only said one thing: foolish. I didn't take it seriously then. The sweetness of love had gone to my head. My mind was full of the beautiful future Oliver and I would have together. Now that I think about it, everything I've experienced over the past 10 years has been paying for that foolishness. The easiest thing to change in this world is a true heart, and the least valuable thing is a vow. Since my fate is destined to live out my days in this world, I might as well make the second half of my life comfortable and carefree. Oliver Thornton knelt outside my bedroom door all night. In the morning when I got up, he had even made breakfast. I didn't even glance at it and drove off directly. I would never let Eva Walsh off the hook. I would make anyone who deceived and insulted me pay the price. But unexpectedly, I was bloody kidnapped. When I woke up, my hands and feet were tied to a chair, and just a step away from me was Eva Walsh, still unconscious. The cabin rocked back and forth. I sighed and then closed my eyes to rest. I've done kidnapping before. It's just a matter of waiting for someone to bring the cash. No big deal. But it was different for Eva Walsh. How could such a delicate flower have seen this kind of situation before? As soon as she opened her eyes, she started wailing loudly. "Let me go! Do you know who I am? When Ollie comes, you'll all be dead." What kidnappers hate most are arrogant fools who think too highly of themselves. After 2 slaps, Eva's face swelled up. They didn't know how to cherish flowers and pity Jade, using all their strength. She was in tears, unable to speak through her sobs. But then she turned and saw me unharmed. Instantly, she became furious again. "Why aren't you hitting her?" The kidnapper rolled his eyes. "She's prettier than you." "What?" Eva stared with her big eyes, dumbfounded. Oliver Thornton quickly arrived with the money in hand. By this time, Eva Walsh and I were already hanging from the side of the boat. The moment Eva saw him, her eyes lit up. "Ollie, I'm so scared," she whimpered. Oliver's gaze fell on me. £10 million, not a penny less. "Release both of them," he demanded. I wondered curiously where he had gotten that kind of money. The kidnapper circled behind Eva and me. "Choose one," he taunted. Oliver lost his temper. "You bastard, didn't we agree to release both of them?" The kidnapper let out 3 cackling laughs. "Why would you trust the word of a bastard? Stop being such a woman about it. Hurry up and choose, who will it be?" The knife suddenly pressed against the ropes holding Eva and me. If he chose one of us, the other would be thrown into the sea. Eva screamed in terror. "Ollie, save me! I'm carrying our child. It doesn't matter if I die, but this baby deserves to see the world, to be held in your arms." I didn't want to die either. My gaze fixed directly on him. "Oliver, you know I'm afraid of water," I said. Oliver lowered his eyes, his brow furrowed in conflict for quite a while. When he looked up again, there was an answer in his eyes. He looked at me. "Dana, I don't blame you for taking all my assets. I was the one who wronged you, and everything I have today is rightfully yours. But using this method to force me to choose, isn't that a bit too cruel? We're talking about two living, breathing human beings here. Can we not play this game? Please? How could anyone in the capital dare to kidnap you anyway? I realized what he meant and lowered my head with a bitter smile. How could I still have any expectations of him? Hadn't I already seen his true nature? But faced with life and death, my heart still ached for a moment. Are you saying I'm orchestrating this kidnapping scenario myself? I asked. Isn't that the case? He asserted confidently. Don't you control all the underground forces in the capital? I laughed. You think too highly of me. His face was full of apology, his tone sincere. I'm sorry, Dana. When we get home, you can punish me however you like. But right now, I can't let two lives disappear before my eyes just because I love you. The kidnapper lost patience. Are you finished? Have you made your choice? Oliver slowly raised his hand, pointing at Eva Walsh. I choose her, he said. Oliver Thornton took Eva Walsh away on another small boat towards the shore. The sea breeze blew through my hair, carrying Oliver's voice to me. Dana, I'll be waiting for you at home. I couldn't help but laugh coldly. The kidnappers swiftly cut the rope that was suspending me. A sudden sense of weightlessness overwhelmed me as I fell into the sea like a free-falling object, instantly swallowed by the water. No, no, Dana. Agonizing screams echoed across the sea. They continued for a long time. But I had already swum 100 meters underwater. The girl who once fainted at the sight of water could now freely soar through the vast ocean. But my strength was limited, and the endless sea gave me an overwhelming sense of pressure. I frantically searched for something to cling to when I felt arms encircle my waist. I turned to look at the person, allowing him to bring me to the surface and onto the boat. I lay on my back, gasping for air, not caring about my disheveled state. Dana, are you tired? Caleb Wilkinson handed me a bottle of water. I glared at him irritably. Was this all your plan? He reached out to tuck my wet hair behind my ear. I was afraid you'd soften up like before and fall for that scoundrel's tricks. This was the only way to make you see him clearly. I turned to look at the turbulent sea. I've long since given up on him. Oliver was right, all the underground forces in the capital were at my command. No one would dare kidnap me. Except for Caleb Wilkinson. He was the most disobedient puppy by my side. The first time Oliver Thornton cheated, I found Caleb in the rain. The boy was covered in injuries, his clothes tattered. Out of pity, I took him in. The second time Oliver Thornton cheated, that girl spoke rudely to me. Before I could say anything, Caleb cut out her tongue. Since then, anyone who bullied or disrespected me was punished. Now, the once scrawny boy had grown into a lean, muscular man. He exuded an intense masculine aura. At some point, his gaze towards me became heated and greedy. Sometimes when our eyes met, I couldn't control myself either. Oliver Thornton had people searching the sea for 3 days, but they still couldn't find any trace of me. His parents tried to console him, saying that the dead cannot be brought back to life. He went mad, smashing everything in the house to pieces. Eva Walsh plucked up the courage to comfort him. Oliver, don't be sad. I'll always be by your side. You can treat me as a substitute for Dana. I don't mind. Oliver looked at her with bloodshot eyes. Substitute? Are you cursing my Dana to death? It's all because of you. Why couldn't it have been you who fell into the sea? Eva pressed herself against the wall, her legs shaking violently, her voice trembling with tears. Oliver, have you forgotten? You chose me. When our child is born, everything will be better. Oliver's hand brushed over her belly, his smile chilling. Dana is gone. What meaning does this child have now? He suddenly grabbed a shard from a broken vase nearby and plunged it into Eva's abdomen. Accompanied by piercing screams, blood pooled on the floor. Oliver Thornton went to that part of the sea every day. He held the marriage certificate, muttering to himself. Dana, as soon as you come back, we'll get a divorce. Eva is dead now. There won't be a third person between us anymore. Dana, please don't leave me alone. I miss you so much. I truly know I was wrong. People at the seaside thought he was mentally ill. Children often threw stones at him. But gradually, he seemed to actually become mentally unstable. On the street, he would grab the arms of strangers with backs similar to Dana's, begging them to come home with him. He got punched quite often because of this. Soon after, loan sharks came knocking. But the actual person in control of the company had already been replaced by someone I arranged. He couldn't withdraw a penny from the company, and his cars and houses had long been transferred by me. The debt collectors were ruthless, only caring about money. The £10 million he borrowed to ransom Eva had now ballooned to $50 million. With nowhere to turn, he actually jumped off a building. But he didn't die, only became paralyzed. His parents ultimately couldn't bear to see him suffer, so they scraped together enough money to pay off his debt. As Caleb Wilkinson whispered these things in my ear, I felt a strange sense of dissatisfaction in my heart. Hadn't he once sworn that if there was a next time cheated, he'd be damned? Yet there had been several next times already, and his current situation wasn't particularly dire. I sat up from the lounger, thinking it was time to pack for the trip home. When Oliver Thornton saw me, he was stunned for a moment before his eyes lit up with excitement. "Dana, is it really you?" I thought I was dreaming again. "I knew you must still be alive. Where have you been all these days? I've missed you so much. Are you hurt?" I raised my eyebrows impatiently. "You talk too much." He immediately fell silent, but his eyes remained bright. I clapped my hands, and the door was pushed open. Oliver's eyes widened in shock. How are you still alive?" At the time when he threw Eva into the sea, she hadn't actually died. Caleb had his men fish her out. We were just waiting to see this dramatic confrontation between enemies. I turned to look at Oliver. "How do you feel? Happy?" "I spent quite a bit of money to save her life." "You two can chat now." Oliver trembled anxiously. "Dana, don't go, I still..." His words were cut off by Eva's knife. They turned into a series of agonized wails. I listened contentedly outside the door, my footsteps becoming lighter. Oliver Thornton was dead. A horrible death. His body was covered in wounds, and even his eyes weren't spared, they had been brutally gouged out. Eva Walsh, in her deranged state, walked out the door in a daze and threw herself in front of a speeding car. She died too. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor, pouring myself a glass of red wine with a sense of delight. Outside, fireworks exploded in a dazzling array of colors, grand and spectacular. Caleb wrapped his arms around my waist from behind. "Dana, aren't the fireworks beautiful?" he asked. "They are indeed," I replied. He smirked with satisfaction. "Well, at least Oliver's ashes served a purpose in the end."